What is up, everybody? Eric here from That's Wrestling. We have just finished the first AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite show, and boy, was it one heck of a show. We have a new women's champion. We have a whole bunch of feuds that are getting very heated, and we will talk about all those. But first, my name is Eric. You are listening to That's Wrestling. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can send me an email, eric@thatswrestling.com. If you're watching this on YouTube or anything, you can get the podcast version if you'd like on all your favorite podcast platforms and directories, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Spreaker, a whole bunch of other ones. Or you can just go to thatswrestling.com to pick up the RSS feed over there. So, wow. This is a great start, I believe, though it was not without a few hiccups. I also have a friend who's actually at the show, and he says they are going to be doing 3 more matches after the show has gone off the air. So if you hear a phone buzzing, that is what I'm getting. He is sending me info as it happens, so I will have some of that information. So having him in the arena has been nice because during commercial breaks he could tell me what was going on, and there was some chance that I couldn't really figure out what they were, but he let me know. And so starting off, there was a dark match before the show. It was Darby Allin and Shima, and Darby Allin went over on that with a trust fall off the top rope. So that is what I was reported. It looks like actually one of the dark matches after the show is going to be Lucha Bros versus Jack Evans and Angelico. So that will be interesting. So even right off the bat, there was a bit of a production hiccup. I had already turned to TNT about half hour before the show started, so I did see they had a cut in on a commercial about 20 minutes out, and there was some serious production issues during that. There were some title screens that probably shouldn't have been shown. It basically came up ahead AEW Inject #1, and then it was on the screen for like 10 seconds, no sound or anything. So obviously that was just a temp title that was, just being a placeholder, but for whatever reason it ended up going out live. And then it finally cut to the Young Bucks and Kenny in the locker room, and they did a short promo, and then it went to like dead air for a little bit, and then there was a title for AEW Inject #2, and that sat on the screen for way too longer than it should have. And then it was finally cut to Jericho and Ortiz and Santana in the back and talking a little bit. Jericho cut a promo, and then it went to dead air again for a good 5 to 10 seconds. So that, there was definitely some errors right there. Another thing to bring up is I checked the secondary market of tickets right before 8 o'clock, and on StubHub there were still 1,500 secondary tickets that did not sell. So it looks like the scalpers definitely went a little overboard on this show, and some of them there was 1,500 tickets that ended up having to get eaten by those guys. The commentators were Jim Ross, Excalibur, and Tony Schiavone. So just to start off with the announce team, I thought they were really good. I didn't hear too many things that kind of took me out of it, or I really didn't notice them for the most part. It didn't seem like they were talking over each other or anything like that. But yeah, for the most part, I didn't really notice them. So that's kind of a good thing. They didn't stand out like a sore thumb or anything like that. I did hear at one point at the end of the show that JR did say shit on TV, but it is TV 14, and it is cable, and it is past 9 o'clock or whatever, so they can say that if they would like. So that was interesting. So starting off the show, they had a intro a theme and a video package to go with the theme, and then they had a promo package of Cody and Sammy. This was really good. It was put together with mostly clips from the Road 2 series that was on YouTube. I hope that they continue these types of vignettes and whatnot to hype matches, but yeah, it was good. Another thing I noticed is that they actually have added a bit more space around the ring. So in the All Out pay-per-view review that I did, I mentioned there was a couple times where wrestlers just kind of rack their legs across the top of the barricades when they did dives and whatnot. Pac really wrapped his shins right across the top when I believe he did like a moonsault off the ropes. And good thing he was wearing kick pads, because that would have hurt like hell if he didn't have them. So they did add a bit more space around the ring, which definitely helped. There were, quite a few dives that happened outside the ring, and it looked like they had much more space to work with, and it worked out just fine. So the first match that was going to be on the show is Cody versus Sammy Guevara, and there was such a massive pop when Cody came out and Brandy, and before the match even started, there were really loud Cody chants. And then when Sammy came out, Sammy actually got a lot of boos. I was not expecting that, because it wasn't really played up that he was the heel. So I'm not sure how they ended up getting the crowd to boo so much. Maybe there's something about Sammy Guevara that I don't know about, and that's why he was instantly the heel. But it was definitely Cody was the favorite in this, and then really Sammy really played up the heel role, and then it became more obvious that he was definitely the heel. But I don't know how people knew prior to the match starting that he was the heel. Maybe he cut a promo beforehand or something like that, or played something to the crowd. I don't know. I just don't know. And then so at the beginning, Sammy was acting very cocky, and then there were chants of Sammy sucks. So that was fun, and the match started off pretty basic. It was your basic wrestling match. Started off going back and forth. There were loud cheers for Cody's offense and loud boos for whenever Sammy got in some offense. And then about mid-match, Cody hits a vertical suplex, but he ends up dropping Sammy face first instead of going over to the back. And then a little bit later, he ends up hitting the springboard off the second rope into a cutter, which is an os cutter. So it looks like Cody is going to use the os cutter move in his regular set now, because he has now used it twice that I've noticed. He did it at All Out as well. Sammy then hits his own springboard cutter off the top rope, which was really cool. He was out on the outside and then kind of did a up onto the top rope springboard with a half twist into a cutter. So that was pretty cool. Sammy then was up on the apron, and Cody gives him a boot. It sends him to the floor. And then when Sammy is on the floor, Cody goes for a dive, but Sammy pulls Brandy in the way, and Cody ends up doing the dive onto Brandy. Then there's a huge asshole chant directed at Sammy for pulling Brandy in the way. Then there's a nice sequence where Sammy went for a moonsault, and Cody rolled out of the way. Sammy landed on his feet, and then he does a standing moonsault towards where Cody had rolled, but Cody rolls out of the way again. Sammy lands back on his feet, and then he hits a standing shooting star press. It was pretty cool. Got a 2 count out of that. Brandy then gets a little revenge when she hits Sammy with her shoe behind the ref's back when he is thrown towards the ropes. Cody then hits a disaster kick for a 2 count, and then hits a reverse suplex off the top rope. That did not look fun for another 2 count. Cody then goes to the top rope, but Sammy jumps up onto the top rope and hits a Spanish fly. And like the match had really picked up at this point. Sammy goes for a shooting star press, but Cody gets the knees up and then cradles Sammy for the 3 count. So it wasn't a super exciting finish, but how the match had gone, it was pretty good, especially it kind of picked up near the latter half of the match. It was a pretty good match. I wouldn't say it was spectacular or anything, but it was a solid wrestling match. Pretty good for, the first outing that people are going to see on the show. It was definitely better than most WWE television matches, so not too much to complain about. After the match, they shake hands, but then Jericho comes out from behind and hits Cody. And Sammy just kind of sneaks away like he doesn't want to be any part of this. Jericho hits Cody with the code breaker twice, and then it actually turns into a picture-in-picture commercial, so you could still kind of watch what was going on. And my friend who was actually in the crowd reported from the show when it was in commercial that there was a loud "Thank you, Jericho" chant. And then Cody gets back up, and Jericho then decks him with the belt, and then they move to the Jericho goes to the outside, and he grabs a camera from one of the ringside photographers. This is kind of a classic Jericho move lately. He's done this in New Japan as well, grabbing a camera and pointing it on himself. He got back into the ring and kind of took a selfie with Cody laying in the background, and then Jericho grabs a chair and hits Cody with it on the outside, and then Jericho sets up 2 chairs kind of facing each other, and then he does a power bomb to Cody onto them, and that's kind of when we come back from commercial. Jericho grabs the mic and says that he is Chris Jericho and that he is the champ, and then they actually cut to a moments ago video package, so it ended up cutting off Jericho from what he was saying. My friend says that he just said, "You're welcome," and that was the end of his promo. So the moments ago package was all the things that happened during the commercial with some commentary on top of them. Then the next match up was MJF versus Brandon Cutler. Brandon Cutler is kind of the friend of the Young Bucks. He grew up with them, but he got out of wrestling for a while, and then he got back in it a few years ago. So he's a friend of the Young Bucks. MJF starts cutting a promo before the match even starts. He heels it up, takes a shot at D&D. If you guys aren't aware, MJF posted a gym selfie of him saying that he doesn't play D&D, blah, blah, blah. He goes to the gym, which a lot of tabletop gamers did not take kindly to, which was classic heel move on MJF. I think he knows kind of the target audience of this promotion. The match begins going on some back and forth. They are taunting each other for a little bit. MJF starts to take control, and then he gets thrown to the outside, and then Cutler does like a suicide dive through the second rope and kind of lands more like a Lou Thesz press and starts raining down punches out on the ramp. MJF gets thrown back into the ring, and Brandon Cutler goes to the top rope, but it looks like he had tweaked his knee doing that dive, so he kind of falls down, and MJF is kind of over in one corner, so it looks like Cutler might go for a running splash or something, but MJF pulls the ref in front of him in the corner, and then as Cutler kind of pulls the ref away, MJF lands a huge forearm and then puts him into the Salt of the Earth submission, and MJF picks up the win there, and that's all there was to that match. The next segment after coming back from commercial, there was Chris Van Vliet, and the segment was with Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes, and they get interrupted by Jack Evans and Angelico. They jaw jack a bit, and then Private Party comes out to join Smith and Mewes in the front row, and that's really that was pretty much the gist of that segment. Then there was an SCU video package. Scorpio Sky does a excellent Barack Obama impression. It was actually pretty funny. And then it cuts back to the arena, and SCU starts doing a promo up on the stage with Tony Schiavone, and they say that it's going to be Christopher Daniels and Kazarian who are going to be the two that are going to be representing SCU in the tag team tournament. Then the Lucha Brothers come out, and Phoenix says that they're the best tag team in the universe, and then the two teams start brawling, and then eventually it gets broken up, and then we move on into our, I believe, a cut to commercial. So coming back from commercial, our next match is going to be Hangman Adam Page versus Pac. Excalibur mentioned that Pac was actually undefeated for 2 years and nobody noticed. So that was an interesting bit of information, because he was Dragon Gate champion for quite a long time, and I don't know what type of run he had up to prior to winning the championship at Dragon Gate, but I'm guessing it was a pretty decent run. There was a commercial right after Pac got in the ring. The report from the show is that Pac was just kind of teasing the crowd during the commercial, and they didn't ring the bell until actually the commercial came back. So they start off with a striking exchange. Page hits a huge spinning lariat. Pac rolls to the outside, then Page goes after him. Pac tries to throw Page into the railing, but Page reverses it and throws Pac into the railing actually twice, and then Page gets tossed back into the ring. He just goes back into the ring and quickly hits a suicide dive. It is really fast. These are the type of suicide dives that I'd like to see. I didn't expect it to happen. That it wasn't a huge setup. I didn't see Pac setting up, waiting on the outside or anything like that. So, this type of dive I'm completely fine with, because it comes out of nowhere and the person on the outside doesn't look like a total jabroni just kind of sitting there waiting for their opponent to dive onto him or whatever. And this is kind of where the extra space between the ring and the barricades definitely made a big difference. They definitely had a lot more room to work with, because this was actually on the opposite side of the ring from the ramp. So there's the barricades at the normal distance, and like I said, they added a bit more space, so it wasn't as cramped as it was during All Out. So that was good to see. After the dive to the outside, Pac gets thrown back into the ring. Page hits a fall-away slam and then a shooting star press. Then Page gets sent out to the floor. Pac goes after him, hits a few strikes, and then hits a springboard moonsault onto the floor and ramp. Back into the ring, Pac hits a springboard 450 for a 2 count. Pac then hits a drop kick in the corner and then goes up to the top rope, and then Pac eats a super kick while he's up on the top rope. Then Page hits a fall-away slam from the second rope, pulling him off the top of the ropes, and then hits a drop kick, and then kind of into a pop-up flapjack cutter. That's the best I can explain it. He was kind of holding Pac cross-body, and then he kind of threw him up in the air, and Pac came down front first, and Page tried to kind of go for a cutter, but I think he kind of missed it. So it kind of was more like a throw. He just kind of threw him up in the air and kind of flapjacked him, I guess. That's the best I can describe it. You'd have to see it. But I think it was a slight botch, but it worked out. Page is then thrown through the ropes, through the corner, and hits the post. And then it goes to a picture-in-picture commercial, which is kind of nice. I'm glad that they were using a picture-in-picture for the most part. I think there was only one match where they did not do picture-in-picture, which is actually the last match. So they did picture-in-picture, and the one thing I noticed, the commentary team didn't say something stupid when going to commercial, so that was nice. They didn't say like, oh, stick around, AEW is rolling on, or anything like that. They just said, we have to go to commercial, but we'll be doing picture-in-picture, something like that. And it didn't seem contrived or anything, and even during the picture-in-picture, I'm guessing that the crowd probably didn't even know that they were in commercial because there was still action in the ring. They didn't go into some stupid holds, but Pac was definitely on top throughout the whole that whole time. Pac starts playing with the crowd a little bit. You can kind of see him showboating a little bit. Pac lands a few kicks while Paige is tied up kind of in the ropes and in the commercial. And like I said, Pac was pretty much in control the whole time during the commercial, but they didn't do any like stupid rest holds or anything. So that probably made it a lot nicer for the crowd in the arena, not knowing that they were actually at commercial at that time. Paige then kind of fires up and he hits a few strikes and then a massive spine buster, and then he hits a huge forearm and then a pop-up powerbomb. He sets up for the buckshot lariat, but Pac rolls to the outside, and when he does that, Paige goes for a top rope moonsault to the floor. And then back in the ring, Paige kind of whips Pac towards the ropes, but the ref is right there, so Pac's body is blocking the ref. Paige comes up from behind him. Pac hits a low blow at that point, and with Paige on the ground, he hits a black arrow to his back and then puts Paige in the brutalizer for the submission win. And that was it for that match. Coming back from commercial, Britt Baker comes out. She's going to be on commentary for the Riho versus Nyla Rose match. Oh, I should say the Hangman Page match and Hangman Page and Pac match was quite good. Like I said, definitely better than you would normally see on other TV wrestling matches. So big thumbs up there. So going into the Riho versus Nyla Rose match, this is for the women's title. The crowd seemed pretty lukewarm on both wrestlers early on, and then they kind of cut to commercial after Riho came out, and then when they came back from commercial, they did the introductions and whatnot, and then it kind of sounded at that point the crowd was definitely more on Riho's side. There was actually a pretty good amount of boos for Nyla Rose. They start off with a short striking exchange. Riho hits a couple drop kicks and takes Nyla down with a head scissors. Nyla hits a shoulder tackle and a splash, but then Riho gets up, gets a few stomps in, and then she goes to stomp on Nyla's back, but Nyla kind of bridges up while Riho is on her back, and she kind of falls down at that point. Riho, that is. Nyla then hits a heavy kick to the back of Riho and then puts her in a submission hold. It looks kind of looked like an STF, but Riho gets to the ropes. Riho gets out of a vertical suplex, and then Nyla really kind of lays in an elbow. Riho then hits a couple running knees with Nyla on the outside. Riho goes for a crossbody off the top rope, but Nyla just like catches her right there and gives her a backbreaker across her leg. Nyla then grabs a chair from under the ring. I don't understand why they did this. It really made no sense. I don't know why Nyla would risk getting disqualified in a championship match. So yeah, this action kind of did not make any sense. The ref took it away before she could do anything with it. Nyla then throws Riho into the railing, and while Riho is down, Nyla then pulls out a pile of chairs and puts them on the ramp. Again, why is Nyla pulling out a bunch of chairs when... Why would Nyla want to get disqualified or risk getting disqualified? Again, really kind of made no sense. She then gets Riho laid across the chairs, and then Nyla goes for a cannonball senton, and Riho moves, and Nyla lands on the pile of chairs instead. Riho then puts Nyla into a crossface in the ring. Actually, Riho then hit a double stomp from the top rope across Nyla's back once they got into the ring. And then Riho put Nyla into a crossface. And then We go to commercial, but again, we have picture-in-picture. Nyla powers out of the crossface. Riho hits a double stomp, but Nyla then hits a fall-away slam and then Riho gets draped over the top rope and eats a knee to the face, and then Nyla goes up to the top rope and drops a knee across Riho's back while she's still hung up on the ropes. Nyla puts Riho into the STF. They're still in commercial, and it looked like the submission was on way too long. It looked like they were kind of killing time to get out of the commercial. Then it looks like Riho kind of passes out. Then they come back from commercial. Nyla looks like she's setting up for a power bomb, and Riho tries to hit a backdrop instead, but can't lift Nyla. Then they get into a bit of a striking exchange. Nyla hits a big boot, and then Nyla goes for a power bomb again, but Riho gets out of it, and Riho rolls up Nyla for a super close 2 count. Nyla then hits a Death Valley driver for a 2 count. Nyla then goes up to the top rope. Riho climbs up after her, starts laying in some elbows. Riho then actually hits a suplex off the second rope with Nyla was sitting on the top rope for a 2 count. And then Riho hits double knees to the back of Nyla and then hits another double knees to the face and gets the 3. So Riho is the winner and is the first AEW Women's Champion. After the match, Michael Nakazawa comes out and tries to interview Riho, but Nyla attacks him from behind and then hits him with a powerbomb. Then it looks like Nyla is trying to hit what looked like maybe a Death Valley driver on the apron or even to the floor, but Kenny Omega comes down to make the save, and then that was the end of that segment. And they cut to commercial at that point. So, again, good match. It was actually set up really well. Riho looked a lot better in this match than her previous match. And in general, this was actually a really good match. And like I said, Riho looked really good in this match, and she got in quite a lot of offense. So it made it a lot. Given how large Nyla is compared to Riho, it did not seem kind of out of scope for Riho to be able to win this match. So, very good match. So, go check that out if you are interested. And then going in, we have our final match of the evening. It is Jericho, Ortiz, and Santana versus Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. This was originally slated as Jericho and 2 mystery partners, but I was hoping it was actually going to be an actual mystery. On my podcast that I released yesterday, I didn't think it was going to be Ortiz and Santana, because how is that much of a surprise? We've already seen them. We know that they're there, so it's not a huge surprise if they team up with Jericho. So I was hoping for somebody new, for another tag team that we haven't seen, or even just 2 singles stars that we haven't seen and didn't know about that were in AEW. But of course it wasn't. And then they also had announced it the day before, a little after I had released my podcast yesterday, that it was going to be Ortiz and Santana. So it was already revealed before the show went on. So it wasn't actually a true surprise. A little disappointed in that. So right at the beginning of the match, it looks like Omega and Jericho are going to start off the match, but of course Jericho then tags out. Omega and Santana are actually the ones that end up starting off the match. Omega gets in control. Ortiz then comes in to help Santana out, but they both get thrown to the outside. Jericho comes in and Omega goes for like a head scissors, but Jericho turns it into a Walls of Jericho. But then both of the Young Bucks come in and hit Jericho with a double super kick. Omega then tags Matt Jackson. The Bucks do dives onto Ortiz and Santana on the outside, and then Omega is going to set up for his dive. And then Jon Moxley comes into the ring from behind and starts attacking Omega. And the 2 of them brawl out of the ring and into the crowd. And they start brawling into the quote-unquote VIP area. And then John Moxley gives Omega a Death Rider through a glass coffee table, and then it cuts to commercial. Though I'm not sure, I keep forgetting. So the Death Rider is what they're calling it in New Japan, and I'm totally spacing on what they're calling it in AEW. They didn't mention it. Also, the coffee table was not a real glass coffee table. It was definitely sugar glass. It'd be very dangerous if they actually used a real glass one and it wasn't tempered or anything. So it was definitely sugar glass. So it was a breakaway table and sugar glass. So nothing too dangerous right there. But that's the last you see of Omega and Moxley because they cut to commercial and you never see what comes of them. Back from commercial, you have Matt Jackson was being worked over by Santana and Ortiz. They're making some quick tags in and out. Matt is taking all the abuse in this one. Matt gets laid out. Jericho gets tagged in. He goes for a lion salt, but Matt gets his knees up. Jericho tags out, and Ortiz continues to work over Matt. Matt then kind of hits a desperation DDT kind of off the top rope, but can't get to Nick. He then hits 2 Northern Lights suplexes on, I think it was Santana, but I'm not 100% sure. And then Ortiz or Santana, I don't know which one, comes in and hits a 3rd Northern Light suplex, but this time on both of them. Matt then finally gets a tag to Nick, and Nick just goes wild. He does a kick to Jericho. He does a running stomp, I believe, off the apron onto Santana, and then does a dive onto Ortiz or vice versa. I can't remember exactly who got hit with what. It was a very fast-paced hot tag for Nick. He seems to do those quite often. Then Nick tags Matt in. They set up Santana for the Meltzer driver, but Jericho hits Nick with the code breaker when Nick goes for the springboard, and then Ortiz hits a cannonball, kind of like an assisted pop-up cannonball, I guess, onto Matt, who is in the corner. And then Jericho hits the Judas effect and pins Matt. And then the more interesting thing that happens, or the most interesting thing that happens, is that they keep beating down the Bucks, and then Cody comes down to help. And then while Cody is helping, Sammy Guevara comes down and confronts Cody and kicks Cody right in the junk. And then Dustin Rhodes comes down to help his brother. And then from there, we have Jake Hager comes out of the crowd and starts taking out all of the good guys. Then there's a loud "We the People" chant because he used to be Jack Swagger in WWE. So Jake Hager is now with AEW. He picks up Dustin and a gut wrench power bomb onto the ring bell table that they had brought into the ring. Of course, it didn't break because it's a pretty sturdy table, it seems. And then Hagar holds up Cody with the help of Santana, and they feed him to Jericho, who hits the Judas effect on Cody. And then they go off the air after that. So overall, very good first show for AEW. There weren't really any major faults I could find with this show. You had a few little production glitches here and there, but overall, very good show. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what they come up with week to week. Obviously, we have, coming out of this, Cody did win his match against Sammy Guevara, so he should be good to stay in his championship match against Chris Jericho at Full Gear. But it seems like they are going to have a bit of a clash move, in the next few weeks while we are getting to Full Gear in November. And then the rivalry between Hangman Page and Pac. This is probably going to escalate a bit as they move forward, with Riho being the first women's champion, and Britt Baker was on commentary saying that she is definitely going to be going hard for the title regardless of who wins. So I'm guessing we are going to see Britt Baker kind of moving into the title picture for the women's title, and then I'm not sure what the future holds for Ortiz and Santana because they're not in the tag tournament, I don't believe. And Jericho has already set up to meet Cody at Full Gear, so we'll see how that goes. The Young Bucks are in the tag tournament, and I believe next week they will be facing Private Party in the first round. Then we have Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley. That is set up for Full Gear, and it seems like Moxley is interested in escalating the tension between the two of them. So, very good show. They've set up quite a few angles and plenty of storylines to go with it. Let's see, I'm still getting some texts in from my Inside the Arena source, and it looks like, so they had Lucha Bros versus Angelico and Jack Evans, and then it looks like there's Best Friends and Private Party, and then Orange Cassidy was there. I'm not sure what he did. Looks like there was a match between so in the Lucha Bros match, it was Penta got the pin. Then there was a women's tag match between Bea Priestley and Penelope Ford, or someone named Ford. Yes, Penelope Ford versus Britt Baker and Allie. Looks like Britt Baker and Allie got the win there. And then there was Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus with the legless guy, I guess he says, against SCU. And Daniels, maybe that match is still going on, because he just sent me a picture, so it's actually still going on. So I don't know the outcome of that one, but it looks like Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy and the legless guy, which I'm totally spacing on what his name is fighting SCU right as I am recording this, so I can't give you the results of that one. But all in all, good show. I hope to do these shows live on YouTube starting on the 16th. Like I said, I am going to the show most likely this coming Wednesday in Boston. So I won't be able to do the show live after that, because then I will be driving 2 hours home, because Boston is not close to my house, unfortunately. So yeah, be sure to go over to the YouTube channel. The link is in the show notes of this. If you haven't, go subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that's where I will be doing my live shows. And yeah, if you want to send me a message, feedback, questions, discussion topics that you want to hear about, you're wondering about my thoughts, you can send an email to eric@thatswrestling.com. If you're watching this on YouTube and would like the podcast version of this, you can find it on all your favorite podcast directories, or you can go to thatswrestling.com to pick up the RSS feed over there. So thanks for listening, everybody, and we are going to be in for a very interesting fall and winter with so much crazy things going on in wrestling. So yeah, I will probably talk to you next week after AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite. So until then, thanks for listening to That's Wrestling.